everyone. My name is Tracy Rosenthal. I work with the Reuben Mark Initiative for Organizational Character and Leadership here at CBS. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to one of our premier programs, the C-Suite Conversation series, today with Fanatics Events. This event is hosted as part of the Reuben Mark Initiative at CBS, which designs courses and programs to teach the leadership skills necessary to create optimal organizational cultures. The event was established by Reuben Mark, former chairman and CEO of Colgate-Palmolive. Reuben is a visionary leader who kept the importance of effective organizational culture always at the forefront of his thriving business strategy. Today's panel offers a unique view into how the C-suite leaders work together to design companies with effective cultures. The conversation will highlight the competitive advantage that exists when these partnerships are strong and collaborative across all function areas. But first, I'd like to introduce our amazing moderator, Professor Todd Jick. The
Oh, wow, already.
There'll be more of that, where it came from. He is the Reuben Mark Faculty Director of Organizational Character and Leadership at CBS. He is a leading expert in leadership and org character, and he has a long career in both academia and consulting work in this field. At CBS, he has built the insanely popular courses, Organizational Change and Bridging the American Divide, co-taught with Professor Bruce Usher. He has twice received the Singvi Prize for Teaching Excellence, the Ultimate Teaching Prize here at the Business School. And always my favorite way to brag about you, Professor Jick, is saying that last year, he was bestowed the highest award given by the Provost Office, the Columbia University Presidential Award for Outstanding Teaching, and boy, does he deserve it.
Wow. Whoa.
Uh,
That's it. Everybody.
We're out of time, folks. So
Thanks, Professor Jick, for guiding this conversation today, and I hand it over to you to get us started.
Wow, Tracy, that was way too kind. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? So today's focus is sort of twofold. It's really about what happens to a group of people that are brought together and called an executive team. Do they actually operate as a team? And HBR had an article just this month called "Does Your C-Suite Really Operate as a Team?" I mean, it's not a given question. It's something that we have to kind of figure out. So by having all four of you, I'm going to introduce, we'll hopefully get to answer that question. But they're also a special team in that they've kind of worked together over many years in different places. And we'll talk about that. How many have been to Comic-Con? Comic-Con. There's been a Comic-Con. Also just a handful. Okay. We got work to do in explaining that part of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about how they form and work as a team and how they build a culture at this unit called Fanatics Events, which is part of a larger organization. So they're kind of a separate unit within a division within a larger company. And how do they form their own culture or be part of the corporate culture, et cetera? All those kinds of questions. All right, Mark's already helped me with the introduction to Lance. Lance is the CEO. I'll read the actual copy here, Lance. Leads the strategic initiative to create a global network of live events that provide experiences at the intersection of sports, collecting, and popular culture. Prior to Fanatics Events, Lance served as president of Reed Pop. You probably don't know Reed Pop, but it had a lot to do with the creation of Comic-Con. Many exhibitions, and Star Wars celebrations, PAX, and more, all were sort of under Lance. So he's got quite a history there. So Lance is numero uno. Then we have at the far end, Mike Armstrong. You can see from the pictures around you. Mike is senior vice president. In his role, responsible for business operations, budgeting, revenue generation, and strategy development. How does that sound as a job? Yeah, that's what I thought. So Mike, be sure you tell them how exciting that job is.
it's also inaccurate. Like that was like 3 years ago.
That's 3 years ago. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to read. I'm going to read the bullshit stuff here, and then they're going to tell you what they actually do in a second. All right. Prior to joining Fanatics, so this is true. Mike was a VP at Reed Pop, again working with Lance there. Then Lauren DeMaio. Then Lauren is right here. Now, if this is not true, tell me how much of this is true. All right, leads the team responsible for all aspects of event planning and execution, ensuring fans are given the top-notch experience they deserve. Yeah. Prior to joining Fanatics, was VP of the events team at Left Field Media, the consumer arm of Clarion Events, but she's also a Reed Pop alum, so got some connection. That's largely true?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then Scott Fisher, right here, head of strategy, sets the strategic roadmap for Fanatics Live experiences, working across the events leadership team and senior executives company-wide to ensure events deliver impact. They're all involved with events. They're all delivering events, planning events, strategizing about events. Prior to joining the events team, Scott served on Fanatics' corporate strategy team, which means he was at the upper level there and began his career at Bain. Bain people, we're the Bain people. There's one Bain person. There's one Bain person there. All right. Mike, straighten as you start out. Straighten. What do you do? What do you actually do?
Well, I think like it's just it's an interesting commentary on. We started 3 years ago, and we all thought we were going to do something, and that's kind of evolved. And that bio says business strategy. Like I don't touch business strategy because Scott joined the team and is infinitely better than I was at that. So it's
Not
evolved
true
over
at all.
time. Well, it's evolved over time, and you fall into your place, you run where the problems are.
In a good way, evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what you originally were asked to do, you've evolved, and it's to the good from your standpoint.
Yeah, I think originally I was employee number 2 or 3, and it's like come in and do everything. And when you're on a team of 3, like everybody has to do everything. But now we're a team of 26, and so you're able to kind of shed some of the stuff that you're not great at, so that you can bring in teammates who are good at that stuff.
All right, let's go down the line. Tell us what you really do.
Honestly, like it changes every day. And I think I was talking with the team about it, like what we did for year 1 of Fanatics Fest versus what we did for year 2 versus what we're doing now is constantly changing.
What's the years? When did this start?
So we started in Lance, you joined in spring of 2023. And then we started really working on the first Fanatics Fest in January of 2024. It happened in August 2024. Then we had our second one in June of 2025 this year. And now we're currently selling tickets for our third in July of 2026. So as we think about like kind of the end of one event, I think that's when the year starts. So we're in year 3 now.
Then it's not surprising that a lot of people don't know about Fanatics and that the events, and that we're here to tell the story. Once we get to Lance, he's going to give us a little sizzle reel also, so we'll see it kind of more animated. All right, Lauren,
Yes.
what do you do?
I'm vice president of operations. So my team is responsible for taking all the planning and it coming to life. Everything from managing all of the vendors, everything coming in the building, getting moved out of the building, audio visual, security, staffing. That was my original scope. I'm now also responsible for a talent operations team that we are building actively in preparation for year 3.
And scale of this, I mean, where would this take place? Venues?
We have our Fanatics Fest. So we're going to be taking over the full Javits building this year. And then we also do WWE World. So we work in conjunction with WWE on putting on fan events with their major PLEs. So in conjunction with WrestleMania, SummerSlam, our team works across all of those events.
All right, now El Capitan. So Mark was referring to a course I don't teach at the moment called Advanced Org Change, where Lance was a guest for a number of years because he was sort of a pirate within this Reed Pop organization that was different than the kind of corporate parent. And I thought, in terms of being an intrapreneur, being able to make things happen within a larger organization, he was sort of the shining example. Now you've got over to Fanatics Events. Tell us about what you do, how you got to Fanatics Events, and then let's do a little background.
And I'll ground everybody in sort of Fanatics and give you a little sense of Fanatics Fest and what it is. It's pretty simple. I built a company within a company, scaled it from 0 to about $160 million and 30 so events around the world, right? Based on an idea that fostered inside this bigger organization. One day, Michael Rubin, who's the CEO of Fanatics, called me. He'd gone to New York Comic Con, which was a show that we launched, created, and just asked the question, like, why doesn't this exist for the world of sports? And as you guys have probably studied, great entrepreneurs have a sense of like great questions. And that was a really brilliant question. And he essentially made a pitch. He's like, you want to come do this at Fanatics, build a company. And to Todd's point, my experience was building something inside a larger entity, building a divergent but complementary culture, brand, business model inside a bigger entity. So there was some familiar territory there to me. Also, I worked in popular culture, and this was an arm of popular culture, sports and card collecting and memorabilia and athletes that was different but familiar. So I was able to kind of use my experience without just rinse and repeating and trying something new. And if you are familiar with Fanatics, it's a pretty massive organization that's got a lot of energy and attention and heat right now. So one of the things that we would talk about a lot in organizational change was the company I was working for thought a bit small. They were publicly traded. They were risk adverse. for very good reasons. Their shareholders wanted that. No, not a criticism, just a fact. I was really interested in, is there a stage that we could do bigger things? And Michael Rubin tends to think quite big. Um, so I came on board to start over, and I wanted to build again. I like building because it's hard to do it wrong. I always say, like, when you build something, it hasn't been done, no one can tell you you're doing it the wrong way. So that sort of open space is really enticing to me. So those things all matched up. I made the leap. I was employee number one. They kept telling me when they were recruiting me, they're like, "We're going to get you that CEO title." It's like, well, I never asked for it. But secondly, I'm CEO of nothing, right? We have no business, we have no revenue, we have no employees. So I've really finally arrived where I'd been trying to get to. It was sweet. I threw that around quite a bit. Around the house, I made my kids call me CEO, just in the usual trappings of that sort of stature. And we set out to build. I think where this gets interesting when we talk about culture is just, do we want to build exactly what we built before and was successful? Do you want to draw off of that and then add on to it? Do you want a completely different culture and to serve a new mission? And I think, the answer we came up with and why I thought these were three interesting people to join was yes to all the above, right? You want to kind of build some things you're familiar with. You want to then adjust to your new environment and recognize it's different and find some different sort of cultural elements, but ultimately blend them together to accomplish a mission and learn along the way. So it's been 2.5 years of learnings for me.
All right, so give us a little bit more. I know you got a couple of slides here. Because those of you not familiar, and thank you for coming to the session to become more familiar. We're at business school, so give us the business story here.
I'll walk you through it. Yeah. First of all, I've known Professor Jick now for almost 10 years. And it's worth noting that when I met him, I had a different job, I had a different wife, and I had a better hairline. So let me be a cautionary tale to how much you align yourself with the man. You ruined my life and my career and my looks. So
Let's stop that. My award's in question now.
but I got that title. I'll walk you through a little bit of Fanatics Fest and sort of what Fanatics looks like. So just so you have a sense of how it all fits together. Fanatics is essentially three verticals. It is a betting and gaming platform. What a lot of people know it for, most people know it for, is apparel. So licensed apparel. So jerseys and shirts from every sports league you can imagine. And 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2020, they bought Topps from Michael Eisner. And now at that time only had the MLB license for trading cards. They now, we now have the NBA license, and in the spring we'll have the NFL license. So similar to apparel, we'll have the license for all of collectibles. The database, I'm sure you guys talk about flywheels all the time. So you can look at this and see the flywheel going, right? Where you say you have these three different verticals around bet, collect, and apparel, and you've got a huge database, and then you start to create incentives and rewards, and round the flywheel goes. If you can acquire your customers more cheaply from one vertical to another, right? It starts to become a pretty rich enterprise machine. I think one of the challenges just address is that when you're a license company, you're not always loved. Your opportunity is not to be loved. Your opportunity is often to make a mistake, because we are not the New York Rangers or the New York Knicks. We simply deliver the product of the New York Rangers and the New York Knicks that you love. So if the product isn't good, which for a long time Fanatics had some challenges there, if the product doesn't arrive on time, the Knicks don't get blamed, right? Fanatics does. And if the product does arrive on time and you wear it, you love the Knicks. You don't love Fanatics. So there was a challenge there, okay? The second challenge I'll point out is this is great, and that flywheel model is awesome when all three of those verticals are aligned and incented together. In this instance, they were quite independent of each other and didn't do a lot together, okay? So I'm just sort of laying down some foreshadowing, if you will. So the idea around Fanatics Fest was South by Southwest for film, music, television, Comic-Con for popular culture, CES for technology, Coachella for music and influencers. There was these massive live event platforms that brought an entire industry together in one place to celebrate, to make product launch announcements and launches, to really raise the brands and the industry in media. It just didn't exist for sports. Each sport or league had their own kind of fan event, but there wasn't such a platform. So the question is, can we build that platform for sports, entertainment, culture, collecting, etc.? But along the way, what that also meant was that all of Fanatics, all of those entities that I mentioned to you, needed to work together to build something that only Fanatics could build, right? And to show the best of all of that ecosystem in one place and at one time for fans. And these were some of the expressions of how we did that when we launched this event. Um, the other kind of point I'll make tying back to the challenges is events reach a very small number of people compared to a digital campaign, right? A digital campaign will reach millions and millions and millions in a very, very light, shallow way, typically to drive up decision. Buy this shirt. Events reach a very small number of people in a very, very deep way when done well, right? You can literally touch your customers and hug them, and you can give them once in a lifetime experiences, which is what these experiences at the show were meant to do. So if Fanatics has a challenge around being a beloved brand, which it does, right? If Fanatics has a challenge of its how its optics are when jerseys show up wrong, or MLB baseball players have see-through pants, and all of the challenges that you've read about, right? Like, how do you build super fans? Events are a really great platform for that. So we were building something at a time for a company that needed the platform that we could do and knew how to do because of our own experience and background. That's the story. I'll give it to you in a sizzle vid, because what product or event of any value doesn't have a sizzle vid? No, I'm going to, just a spoiler here, it's going to be loud music and lots of like quick cuts. Not like any other sizzle video you've ever seen. I'm a little sarcastic if you...
Okay, this shit is out of control. I'm driving through hell and I done brought snow. It's shining in here and I done brought gold. I hear the sirens right out the chateau. Run me the info. Trying to hear what you did, now how you came close. Cause I get bobblehead like I done made pro. I made Italian bread like I done made dough. I be all around the mile. Write a show by myself like I'm Chelsea Handler. Or write a series by my bitches like I'm Kelsey Grammer. Nickname the Jet Jayhawk cause it's out of Kansas. You know it's Spalding in my talk, I'm in my Esperanza. You know it's slamming water while we gotta fill the stands up. With slaps in the anthems. Poetic justice, I got you in all my stanzas. With your model stances. You everything I know about it. Know about it, 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 know about it. What we know. Where you shall go. Yeah. C notes, B notes. I took the biggest boat. We stayed down for life. It's like a jingle to do them all. We too much involved to spend a single ounce of time. She bust a whole ounce by doing lines. I had to leave like the leaves do trees. I'm finally home. My wife distressed and not just that sweat. We took them 35 to 1 like the shit roulette. Oh, that beg your pardon. We done lit up every set up. Told her picture never finished. That's to say the least. Buy it, never lease it, but I gotta lease a mobile.
All right. Okay. That was definitely loud and fast vocal as prone.
It's DJ Khaled with a shirt off. It's
Not bad. Okay.
Are you not entertained?
So, all right, let's go back to kind of how you guys started working together. And I want to, acknowledge the fact again that in a sense, it's a friends and family team because there are various working relationships. I got all the information. Lance and Mike worked together for 15 years. Lance and Lauren worked for 5 years. Scott, you never worked at Reed Pop, but you were at Fanatics. So all these kind of interconnections. Was that deliberate to sort of, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being sort of somewhat known to each other in terms of becoming a team, an executive team? Who wants to start in on that?
I think it comes with a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
We just did some research with our team and put out some questions and asked, just kind of like a general NPS check-in. And one comment that we got back was, it's really hard to break through to like be part of like the friend group because there are a bunch of us who are like really close to each other. Been in each other's weddings. We have held newborns like weeks old. Like we're very close. And for people who are just kind of coming into that environment, it can be intimidating and it can be a challenge. So we wanted to fill our team with people that other groups within the company were like drawn to and wanted to work with, because it can be a difficult structure to talk to the betting division or the commerce division, like they got their own shit to deal with. And us like saying we've got this event, you should like spend a ton of time and attention and money on this. It's a challenge for that. So we wanted to make sure that we had magnetic people on our team. But we also wanted to have the right balance of people who like know their shit and know how this works and know how events work, and then bring in people who might not be a part of it. I'm sorry, I'm swearing.
There's a baby in the front row. Come on. What's wrong with you?
No, so are you saying it sort of cuts both ways? On the one hand, you're describing yourselves, you got a lot of history, we sort of know each other, we're familiar, but that makes others feel like, you're kind of an in-group and it's hard to get in.
I think
On the other
really
hand,
it can
you
be,
all
yeah.
have confidence in each other.
It's something we got to be really mindful of it. And since Scott's a great example.
Yeah, I'll say like when I joined, it was the three of them and I think one or two other people who had all worked together at Reed Pop, and I was the odd man out. And it was like sometimes they would have inside jokes, and Lance and Mike in particular, the three of us would sit in a lot of offices and they would just go back and forth and name people they worked with. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. Like eventually we'll get back to what this is. And then eventually the jokes became less about that and more about the stuff we were doing together as we built. Lance always called it building our origin story and setting that up. And I'm like, eventually that stuff just comes. And I think part of my job was also to be there. Like, I don't know anything about events. I know a little bit about how Fanatics works as an organization. So I can start to think about how do we then tell the story that they're saying to Michael and to other executives and work across the organization. And eventually that advantage is kind of dissipated as everybody else has learned that as well. But part of my job was to be like, are we sure like the way you guys did it at Reed Pop made sense? And sometimes the answer was no, and let's do it differently. And sometimes the answer was no, and we have 3 months to do this event. So we're just going to do this, and then we're going to figure it out. And we can start to build and grow over time.
So your role, you were the one, because you were not in the in-group, so to speak, but you were, and your advantage was you knew Fanatics, and you were able to kind of be a bridge to Michael and to sort of.
Yeah. And I think part of it was for some way, I started to build their trust over time. And so even though I didn't know the events or I didn't know the story, I was able to say, hey, like, what do we think about this? Are we sure that this is the approach we want to take? And Lance, to his credit, was like, hey, let's change it up. Let's trust this guy sometimes. And sometimes I was right. And a lot of times I was really wrong.
Well, I think Lance and I came into the org, and me in particular came in thinking like, oh, we can like charm people into wanting to work with us. Like, and Scott, even though he'd only been at Fanatics for whatever it was, a year and a half, he's like, that's not how these people think. Like, you've got to put together a business case and you've got to like sell it. You can't just come into the room and do your thing and expect people to like bend over backwards wanting to work with you.
All right, Lauren, now straighten this out. I mean, first of all, working Scott into the mix, how was that? Or give us your own sense of kind of how the team formed in the history and given the new composition here.
Yeah, I think, well, in addition to us having history, there's also other folks that we brought in with prior history as well, like two gentlemen from Reed Pop sitting right over here. So kind of, again, like was not just the executive team. I think when Scott came in, there was so much unknowns around the entire Fanatics landscape that I saw value. I mean, I thought he was amazing right away because there was a lot that we were trying to figure out. Like what Mike was saying, how to deal with the different internal groups, who to go to for what. I mean, Fanatics is an enormous company, so it was beneficial from the start.
And then Lauren just decided to call me Scoot or Scoots.
Gotcha.
And it was just like, all right, we're gonna like bring you in.
Crew now.
Yeah, we're gonna make you part of the crew. We're gonna give you nicknames. We're gonna rag on you like we rag on everybody else.
Yes.
And at first I'm like, this isn't how the rest of my teams worked. Like at Fanatics, like this isn't always what we do. And they're like, yeah, that's how we operate here. And so there was this tension of like, we have to go from the same team who's sit down here, and then we have to figure out how do we go sit in front of the CEO and CFO and sell a lot of these things through. Because Lance, I'm sure you can say, just because you were hired to come in and run this team, you probably were like, oh, they've definitely made a decision that they're going to go build a network of live events. That's why they're hiring me. And then you come in and it's like, justify your existence. Why are you here? Yeah.
Right, Lance. You were the architect of this, or not? How did this form from is this what you envisioned, and is this what you wanted?
I think what I'll say is, if you just step back and I'm thinking about it somewhat academically, considering where we are, is, it's the old Reed Hastings, no brilliant jerks concept, right? That just because someone is highly talented and highly capable, it doesn't mean they're the right fit. And I've always, I set out to build a team that everyone would want to work with. Remember my story of verticals? Those verticals are each led by extremely talented, extremely successful, extremely type A, extremely well compensated individuals with their own C-suites. Like, we need to have a good idea, but we also need to be people that they see as partners to build with. And so my point here is to say that we built a team that everyone would want to work with, okay? That we would happily absorb blame and defer credit so that we could get this thing stood up. And at times, to do that, it doesn't mean you need the most talented person or the best pedigree or the best background. You need the right person to do the work and that is willing to do it. The flip side of that is at times recognizing that sometimes you need a higher caliber of talent. Just because you have a good match and the personality is there and it feels good culturally, they may not have the chops. And leadership, right, whether it's me or it's a leadership team, needs to be able to recognize when you need which. Okay. And that's hard. And I'll say, like, there are some bets, some choices I made that maybe leaned more towards culture than experience or pedigree or talent. And I bet wrong, right? I put a culture person into a role where I needed more talent. And you pay for that, you know? I have not really ever made the other mistake. It's just I'm too focused on culture and fit. So I can't think of too many places where I made that bet. But like, I'll give one more example. Like Scott was a risk, right? He's a Bain guy. He's an MBA guy. He's an IU guy. He's the opposite.
He's not an MBA guy. I think.
Oh, that's yeah, MBA, yeah. I get an MBA, but he's a Rhodes Scholar. My point.
By the way, you did have one of our MBAs working for you, right? Last year,
Sarah.
Sarah Nelson.
Sarah Nelson. Some of you know Sarah Nelson, who's graduated, work with them.
There's a risk of saying, like, here's a person who knows the industry, knows the company, is very well groomed, knows everything. He's going to be a cultural fit. And like when I met Scott and took him out for beers and started to kind of case him a little bit, like I was like, I think I can work with this guy. And this guy has all the talent in the world. What he doesn't necessarily have at this stage in his career is some of those leadership experience and thinking about culture and team building and those sorts of things. So my trade was like, give me your talent, I'll teach you those things. And together we'll do great work, right? So back to this point of like when you want cultural fit, when you need a talent fit, and trying to figure out when you get it right and wrong.
Yeah, and I think some of the students here, again, are second years. You're going to join a company. The question is, are you joining an intact culture? Are you building a company where you're bringing some of your friends and family with you? If so, how do you balance the culture and pedigree kind of question? Because you're saying you are on the side of the culture, on the culture side.
Right.
So let's go back to now. So
By default.
how you work together. I mean, these are four of you are still distinct personalities. So I was going to ask you the question about some of your own individual leadership styles. I mean, are there differences here that you can speak to in terms of what each of you both brings in terms of background, but also your own style, and how does that blend together? How does the collaboration go? Given background, I don't know, Lauren, maybe we'll start from this side and go down this way. You know, your style and how that might contrast with some of them, and they can speak for themselves too.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like a combo platter. Obviously, operations very much results driven. Our life revolves around deadlines, deliverables, getting shit done. Baby's gone. Okay. But I also have definitely empathetic. Big focus on our team, how they're feeling, how's there is bandwidth. Where I think that's like one of my priorities is just really gauge, and not just operations. I think the team as a whole, where other folks might be more.
I'll give you a couple examples of Lauren's leadership style because I think it's really special. And like one is like she had her team. She had Richie and Skip and a couple people on her team over to her house a couple hours out of the city just to have them, hey, let's do an offsite at my house. I'm going to cook you guys dinner. I'm going to make you a meal. But like that's the type of thing where she's like, I want to build that family environment. Even yesterday, one of her team members had a pet pass away and she texted us and was just like, guys, this happened, reach out to her, make sure she's feeling okay. Like think about the people as humans and how do we put them together? Because if somebody loves you and they love the people they work with, they're going to do better work. And I think that at its core is like what makes our team successful.
And then what in contrast, what do you bring up, Marty?
I think sometimes it's I thought you weren't going to tell anybody that. I think I've evolved because I've learned from them. And in my mind, it was like, again, coming from consulting, it's like, let's get the right answer. I know when you're sitting in here, it's like what's the best answer to get to? And sometimes we'd sit in and we'd look at things and I'd say, all right, how did we think about that? What was our process to get there? Where did we go? And I'll probe and I'll ask questions. And I think as I've evolved and I've learned and I've gotten a bit of that seasoning from working with the team, it's not just like, hey, do we have the question or can we get to the right answer? It's like, when do we ask that question? When do we need to get to that A+ answer to work better as a team? Whereas when is it great to say, hey, this is perfect. This is good enough. Let's go forward with this as a team and let's keep moving. And that's that balance that honestly has taken time, and you learn through making mistakes every day. And I think the trust that we have as a team is it's like, yeah, we're all going to keep growing together. And as long as you, like, I think one of the cultural touch points we've had is like, you believe in positive intent with each other always. Like at its core, you always believe everybody's coming in trying to find a solution and everybody's going and running in the same direction. And then however we get there, like we trust each other to do so.
Mike, you want to add you?
I like to spend a lot of one-on-one time. Kind of like I crave harmony. I like consensus building. I'm better just kind of working with people on the things that they need to work on, as opposed to just like big team meetings. I don't really thrive in those situations. Whereas Lance is great for the masses, and I tend to like dig in on high performers and trying to make them better, or trying to figure out how to get low performers to a better spot.
I mean, Lance, as again, you constructed the team, did you think about each of these kind of qualities that they each bring and somehow think this would meld together? Have there been moments where it didn't quite mold together and you had to, either instruct or play some different role yourself to kind of bring the team together?
Yeah, I think it was an intentionally built team, and I think each person has a role to play. I'm not a big structure person, as you know. I'm not big on hierarchies. I'm not big on super defined roles. I tend to think specialization is inefficient. I like people that can do a lot of different things. Mike was, kind of joking about his bio with you, but like, I think Mike's job has changed. The focus of his job has changed half a dozen times in 2.5 years based on what we needed. And you've got to have a certain degree of trust with each other when you're not always going to be doing exactly what you thought you were going to do. And ambiguity and freedom sounds really good until you just have a blank slate and no one's telling you what to do or what winning exactly looks like. You got to figure it out together. That takes a lot of trust amongst people. And that's a very different looking org as you're starting out than in, X period of years when you need to be scaling and maximizing and more efficiency and different skill set. So I needed people that I knew could do a lot of different things and that could foster trust with each other to be like, I don't know how to do this. I guess I'm heading marketing now. I haven't really done this. I've done a little bit of it, but I'm going to work on it. I know that the people around me are going to, augment. And I think where the challenge has been is Fanatics is not an organization that believes in a minimal viable product. There is no, it was good enough. Or like, yeah, no, let's start small and then we'll go from there and learn. It's not how it works. It is high expectations.
Yeah.
And in our world, that is a very public gamble, because if you do it and nobody shows up, it's a pretty big fucking embarrassment, right? So this idea of generalization and ambiguity can work to get you off the ground. But when Michael Rubin is there saying like, we have to have 100,000 people, I've invited everybody, blah, 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 blah. This has to be perfect. This has got to be amazing. You're suddenly like, okay, you're really putting this to the test of, should I have just hired 5 experts that are the best in the world at what they do, even though they may not be able to work together as a team and I don't like them. You see, back to this idea of when you need high-level talent and when do you need cultural fit and getting it right. And I think we've done well, but I think we are, in present company included, myself included, probably not as high performing in some areas as the organization expects of us. And so we've got to make sure that we're always rounding out our team with talent that fits,
I mean, those become sort of moments in which there's probably a lot of self-reflection,
Right.
as you say, about, did we err too much on this side? You default to the sort of culture side when Michael's expectations are very high. Is there a particular speed bump that you hit where this was sort of where you felt it particularly? Some example.
Yeah. How long do we have?
Yeah, we got 2-3 days. Feel free.
Actually Lance's bio is like, we're going to build a global thing. Is like, no, we focus on one show really right now. When we started and we were pitching ourselves to the company to get investment, there were some models that had us doing 355 shows in 5 years. Like, just like,
And Michael asked us to build those boxes.
This is the scale of these shows. I mean, if you've ever been around the Javits Center for Comic Con, that's the one I've seen. The whole town is like hopping with this. But I assume the Fanatics Fest similarly, has that kind of scale. It's 355 of those in 5 years would be insane.
it wasn't feasible. But we were going to do these smaller shows. We're going to do small card shows because we wanted to up the level of card shows in the same way that we had upped the level of Comic Cons when we were running Reed Pop. So we were going to do this show in Orlando. It was kind of like back burner for a long time because we were trying to get past the first Fanatics Fest, which was a beast. And then the show ends. We're looking down the barrel of a show in 4 months, and we've sold 500 tickets. And in my mind, who has launched a bunch of shows who have sold 400 tickets, I was like, all right, like we're going to build a base and we're going to like deliver an amazing experience. And then the next year it's going to grow a little bit. And then the next year it's going to grow a little bit. And after 10 years, it's going to be a 100,000 person show. I was really excited. And then we went to leadership and they're like, how many tickets have you sold? And they're like 400. It's awesome. And they're like, we can't do a show that isn't going to be amazing. And it was the first time that I think we needed to like reframe our thinking. It's like, all right, this isn't the old days. We're not at Reed Pop where that like trial and error would be rewarded and we would have gotten high fives. Like here, it's like it's big and it's amazing, or it doesn't exist. And that was a really hard lesson to learn.
I mean, I know Lance well enough to know that he's ambitious and wants to succeed, but I'm curious, Scott, from your standpoint, to the extent, you know Michael and the kind of the organization. I mean, were you sort of the bridge between, corporate show me the money and we're learning as a team and growing? I mean, how did that feel?
Yeah, at first, and I think there was a lot of times where we would sit down and Lance and I and Lauren and Mike would talk and we'd be like, okay, what do we have? Then how do we go sell it in? And what's the story we can get? And sometimes I was right and sometimes I was wrong. Like, because I think the organization's evolved as we've evolved and grown, the company has evolved as well. Like we've felt a lot of the kind of ups and downs you would feel at the startup, or I would imagine you feel if you go work at a 5-10 person company. We're feeling all those ups and downs while still also navigating a corporate structure at the same time. So in some ways it's the best of both worlds. In some ways it's the worst of both, because we're feeling the highs of, oh my God, we just sold this. We just had this amazing Fanatics Fest and it worked. And like people came and it worked better than we thought. And then 2 months later, it's like, oh, like we're going to cancel this show that we have. And like, okay, what are we going to do now? How do we evolve? And now, we're gonna go and we're gonna run our second Fanatics Fest and we feel great. And then after the second one, we're like, all right, so let's go do all these other things. Let's keep building it. And then like, you know what? Actually, we're gonna just change it and we're gonna focus on how do we turn what we did here into a South by Southwest model and scale and try to have a campus style feel and make this. Maybe we're not going to run 300 or so events, but we're going to generate the revenue and the economic impact of those ones and the brand value of all that just in one. So I think we've had to navigate it and learn, one, how Michael thinks. And I think one of the things that the team's evolved is just like, how is he going to think about that? While also not letting the wins of Michael make those decisions for us. Because at the end of the day, Michael, like we run a business to serve the fans and to create those moments for sports fans. And if we focus too much on how do we navigate this organization and work together with all these other executives in the company, we're going to miss the main thing, which is that.
And just Scott, one more question for you, and then I in a minute I want to open it up for questions. So we use our remaining time for everybody that's questions, but because I think a number of the students could relate to you as a former consultant now inside. What's different about the experience you just described, where you're being held accountable and it's flip flopping all over the place, versus consulting, coming in and giving advice and going home at night?
It's a lot harder. It's a lot. And like everybody else would be like, I'm sure a number of you guys have worked in consulting or had a consulting internship or want to be a consultant after college, after MBA. And it's like, oh, that like, and those are really challenging. Like the hours are long. You're going in, you're making presentations, you're having to figure all that out, but you're not then implementing it and seeing how it works. And so it's a lot more challenging to do that. It's also a lot more gratifying. And it's a lot more exciting to be able, like, there's nothing, and I think we're so lucky to work in events, and I didn't know this before I got into it, but the experience of seeing a fan or a family smile and like to see that father and daughter like get a picture with their favorite wrestler and like have them run out and say that this was the best day of their life. Like there's nothing that compares to that. And so I think it's a lot. It's really challenging to navigate this. And I think it requires, both the IQ and EQ and balancing those things at the same time as we navigate this. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's the last question before we open it up, which is to you about the people here possibly going into sports management, media, entertainment. What advice do you have kind of going into to that as a sort of broader industry? And again, some of them are going to a specific week, some of them are being consultants, but what's your advice overall to that space to the extent people might want that industry?
It's a great space to be in right now. Obviously, like the sports, in terms of live entertainment, it's one of the few things that's really, really thriving and getting eyeballs. So, and you all know that, obviously, that. So you're making some good choices. It's a highly competitive space, and I think you know that as well. I think it's important to think about, and I'm sure you guys do this. You're the smartest people. Like, I love coming here because when I run into you in an interview, I hope you'll hire me, like, so, in the next iteration. But like the ecosystem, look at the whole ecosystem, like leagues and teams and media platforms, networks, whatever that is now, are not the only spaces in which to be involved in sports. And I think to really broaden your view on how you may be in that space and what that might mean, because there's a lot of fascinating spaces around the edges. And those leagues and teams, by the way, I'm looking at Brooklyn, they know those are coveted spots. And it's not, I think about Armstrong worked for a minor league baseball team forever. And like he lived in his car and collected bottles and cans. Like that was the pay scale, right? So recognize that there's a lot of ways that you can participate in that ecosystem. And I would say be open-minded how you might.
All right, let's open it up. Let's open it up for questions right here. 2 generations right in front of us.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much, guys, for this great conversation. So I actually have a background in event planning. I have 2 questions for you. One is, how do you manage stress? Because for those of you who haven't never planned an event before, like it's super stressful. So how do you manage stress as a team and ensure that stress doesn't cause the team structure or productivity? And second question is specifically for an event like Fanatics Fest, how do you manage programming and content when everything's like a lot of it is around like zeitgeist and just making sure that everything is trendy and you can't be planning like a meme 6 months in advance?
Yeah, I'll say one thing and then I'll let the team answer because it's about stress. It's my little meme that I like. It's this scene in Moneyball when Billy Bean, looks at what's the guy's name?
Paul D. or Peter Brandt in the movie.
Yeah. And he looks at him and he goes, "This better work." And Peter Brandt looks back at him and he goes, "I'm just kidding." Right? Like when you are at those high stakes moments, you just let it go. Like you just gotta not, almost act like it doesn't matter. Like that lead up to the 24 launch was the hardest time I've ever had in my life, my career. It was awful. It was really hard. And I think on Saturday night, I remember sitting at this table and it was clear we pulled it off. It was flawed. We pulled it off. Like I think I literally cried. Didn't know the stress I was carrying until that moment where I could let it go. So I think the point is you still got to be the guy that looks at the team and says, don't worry about it. It's just a fucking convention. You know what I mean? Even though you may know, I thought my career was potentially over, whatever my career was, that if that didn't go well, it was really that serious to me. But I hope that no one knew that. Do you know what I mean? There are people that I can talk to about that, but not people on my team. You know what I mean? For them, it's like, don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Lance, I'll say you have a ton of incredible strengths, and I think one of them is we can sit in a room, and we were sitting in a room many times where it was us, and you were freaking out, we were all freaking out, and then 2 minutes later we walk into our full team meeting, and Lance's like, "All right, guys, here we go. We're gonna go win. We're gonna go kill this thing." And your ability to turn it on for the team and motivate people is one of your strengths.
I think something that I'm constantly doing with it. So you hear there's the big picture, right? It's Ruben. They have their leadership meetings. Then I get the call and it's like, okay, all these things are changing. So we have our weekly calls where it is constant checks on team bandwidth. How is everyone doing? Our cycle is really screwy. So like we're busy right now, but we are 3 months out from that show. We're 80-hour weeks. Everybody's working 7 days a week. We know it. We expect it. But really keeping a pulse in the team and who is getting crushed and who isn't, and constantly rejigging, reallocating tasks because it is changing so much. I mean, days leading up to the show, like that Lady Liberty, I mean, these things are coming to fruition, very, very quick timeline. So it's just really keeping a pulse check on everyone and seeing how their mental well-being is. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I love it.
I know you said good. I'm gonna go behind you, and then maybe we'll come back to the programming itself. You got the where's the mic? Mic right here, Tracy. Sorry. This is one of my good friends.
Thank you all for coming to speak with us today. So one of the things I'm interested about is like how you measure success for this event, because it seems like there are almost like two approaches. Like one is a quantitative, like more economic approach, like how many tickets did you sell? How many people, like how much revenue are you generating for the event? But this is also like an opportunity to be able to like further entrench people within like the broader Fanatics ecosystem. So like how do you measure success, and then also how do you like balance those trade-offs between the two?
I think it hasn't changed dramatically from our past where it's tickets sold, sponsorship sold, NPS of fans and exhibitors, like making sure that they came and they had a great time. I think the thing that's different for us is considering the larger ecosystem that we're in. Think back to when we were at a trade show company, like, you know, they looked at the number and said, did you get your margin? Great. Like, let's move on to the next one. Here it's how many people did you get to sign up for the betting and gaming platform? How many people are now Fanatics One members? How many people downloaded the app? How many people bought something from the merch store? Like there's all these different things that don't directly affect our P&L, but affect Fanatics that we're also being judged against. Or I think we want to judge ourselves against those because in year one, we lost, you know, what for a lot of money. But we were able to point to like, here's all the earned media that we generated. Here are all the new collectors that we can say were created because they came to the show and had their first experience opening cards. Here are all the bettors that we got to download the platform. So those things helped mask the challenges we had in year one. But we're still measuring ourselves against those.
I mean, is there also an intangible part of it? You're also trying to build loyalty. I mean, remember from the old days of Comic-Con, again, it was about, you know, just sort of a connection to that community. Can you measure things like that?
We try.
You try.
We try, and like one of the things what I've spent time doing is like, how do we actually build out and say, can we quantify the value of that? Can we say, hey, based on all these things, with the earned media impressions and the percentage of people who in a post-event survey said they're going to be more loyal to Fanatics now, and what their NPS is, if you look at some of that stuff, if somebody came to the event, what do they do after coming to the event on the Fanatics platform, which is what they did before? Can we say, oh, we generated $150 million or $200 million of value? Yeah. And then how do we sell that in again through the organization and get everybody else to say, yes, you generated all that value? And they're kind of incented to say, I generated that value, right? Like you didn't do that with what you did. I did it with all these other initiatives that I did.
I would say very simply, it's fan NPS, it's media impressions, and it's positive sentiment towards the brand. Those are the three. That's what we're driving towards. And then profitability, lots of other things. But if we can do those three things effectively, we'll be delivering value.
All right, we got a question right there. Oh, look who's there. Hi there.
Hi. Thank you guys again for coming.
Introduce yourself to them.
My name is Ross, and I think that kind of in the same vein of this question is when you're starting something for the first time and you're trying to figure out what your goal metrics are going to be. A Fanatics events like this, you could be catering to 20-year-old men, you could be catering to 30-year-old women. There's such a broad range of people. So when you're trying to hit those metrics, is that something you're thinking of before you start the event or as you're going? How does that work?
The first year, I used the term hypothesis more than I ever have in my entire life, right? Because everything was like, I think this is who our audience will be. I think this is what our goals are. I think these are the metrics that will measure success. And then you got to find out. So we definitely put some stakes in the ground based on data and research, but it evolved, right? It absolutely evolved on what we thought we were going to do versus what we did do. In that first year of trying to create the value proposition, but you weren't quite sure what it was, and you weren't quite sure of who it was for, that was really hard. And then to tell a story of something that was original, like it was, I started with our thesis. This hasn't been done before. So you're like, oh, Jesus, how are we going to do this? Like, what is it? Who is it for? And how do we explain it? It was really quite difficult. And I think that was where a lot of then constantly shifting. So we guess and check a lot. And then once we had real data and once we were in the world, it was like, oh my God, it just felt so much easier because we actually knew who came. We knew how they reacted. We were able to start to create some personas and really hone that value proposition. But it was guess and check. It was, thumb in the wind.
Who is your audience? We know. Well,
Say 3 or 4 kind of buckets that we think about all the time. One is the families. About 30% of attendees come with their children. Like this is if you think about you want to take your kids to Disney World, this is Disney World for sports. Second is the collector. Lance brought up the idea of like we looked at that national trading card show and said, how can we take the best parts of that and then continue to kind of bring it in and make it more opening and inviting? So a huge chunk of people come and want to buy trading cards when they're there. The third bucket we always struggled with for a while, and now we've kind of split them into two, which is general sports fans, which was too broad, honestly. And so now it's that New York super fan, that New York City sports fan, super fan, who's like, I can't wait that I'm going to get to go see Henrik Lundqvist LD and also see Derek Jeter and Jalen Brunson. Like, I'm going to come and see those people. And then the WWE fans. Like, this was something that I would say those three groups we kind of knew about. WWE was one that I was pretty surprised about as well. Like, how big that audience is, how rabid that audience is, and how excited they are and how much they travel in for something like this. So if we like those four buckets aren't the only buckets, but those are the easiest ones for us to think about. And they kind of probably hit 80, 85% of our fans.
All right, a question back here, please.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for coming. My name is PJ. You mentioned an awareness of the Fanatics brand's questionable standing in the community with regards to its initial merchandise offerings. And then you also spoke about an organizational demand to go big and demonstrate public success right from the beginning. So my question is, how do you balance your affiliation with your parent org, in particular when you are marketing the first Fanatics Fest and earning the buy-in from that first generation of attendees?
Yeah, awesome question, by the way. We know how to please fans, period. I'll be honest with you. When I was doing pop culture stuff, I wasn't that into video games and comic books. I'm a sports guy, but like I'm not into hardcore sports stuff. And like I love building cultures, teams, and I love delighting fans. So that's what we set about to do. Like I can control that to a degree, to a higher degree. I can control that environment. I could not control the quality of the Flyers jersey you're wearing that went in a box. Can't do that. So I could focus in my team on what we are creating in that environment for those people. And we know how to do it. I've spent my whole career doing that, basically. So it felt to me like if we could borrow the best of that world, which was a lot of relations to athletes in particular and leagues, and convince them to come because of a relationship, right? You got to come. Please come. You owe us this. We spend money with you. They show up. Now we got to just create a playground that fans will love. And it was, and it remains a push and pull, right? Like there was a very, very noteworthy, visible CEO of a very big company that came to the show last year with his son. And his notes, Michael, were, I don't know why I can't get to the front of every line. How do I do this with my kids? And it was kind of like, this isn't for you, you know, like we need to make that person happy. And there's an audience there that we need to care for in its own way. But like we were building a show for fans. So our North Star has always remained pretty true on that. And we've done our very best as we have throughout our career, because at the end of the day, nobody's coming if there are not rabid fans in the audience packing the aisles, right? So that's the best answer I can give is what can I control? What do I have influence over?
All right, to the extent your mission is to delight fans, and like we want to try to delight you now in thanking you. If you enjoyed the time here and you learned something, let's tell them what we enjoyed or what we learned. I'll take three before applause, Brooklyn. Three comments about what you enjoyed or learned this afternoon listening to them. Go ahead, Ross, you start. What'd you think from this? I know Ross can do it. Go ahead. What'd you take? Just quick comments.
I love it. I'm not even in class anymore. Honestly, I think I really love like the commitment to wanting to build that community. I love what you said about the first time you're building something, nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong. And it sounds like a lot of it is just having the confidence and the determination. And I love the concept of the North Star for why you're doing something. So just kind of like having a team that seems to all be, tied into that shared goal and that shared kind of like vision of that community was extremely exciting. And I really appreciate you guys sharing that.
Awesome. One more. Let's go right here, Rachel. Yep.
I attended both Fanatics Fests. And honestly, to like meet the team behind how like amazing and awe-inspiring, I'm like the biggest sports fan. And it seemed like both of the ones were themed to me because it was like Knicks one year and then Eagles the next. Loved that. Just like seeing such a high functioning team and that you guys all like love your jobs and love what you're doing and also love your fans. It was just really beautiful to be able to sit in here and yeah, great job. I can't wait for year 3.
Anybody want final comment? Final comment? All right, then show them through applause. Thank this group for doing a good job. It's-